Welcome to the Dementialand Serial Podcast, a story for everyone who knows someone living in or near Dementialand. My name is Zuzka, and this is my story. She's gonna kill me. This is not good. I signed all the papers that condemned my mother to a nursing home, and temporarily, for 10 days at least. It was the hospital and my mother's insurance company that made the decision. I was assured that she would be in good care. They told me it was the best place for her treatment, the infusion of antibiotics needed for her meningitis encephalitis. But that didn't make me feel any better. For me, it was going to be a 10 days in hell. She's going to kill me. And I can't blame her. I know how she's going to feel. I felt the same way when she sent me off to boarding school. I was so pissed off when she drove away, leaving me in that horrid place. I stood there alone in the admitting lobby, a large room, unfurnished and cold. Echo cold. In that one instant, darkness set in. I was
trembling so much I could hardly move. My legs were shaky. I felt the cruelty of being institutionalized, locked up, cuffed and clobbered from the world, despised by all and pitied by none. Although I had enough to occupy my attention, I looked to each side. A dirtier and more wretched place I had never seen. The hall was very narrow and muddy, and the air was impregnated with filthy odors. There were a good many small rooms filled with heaps of student residents, who, even at that time of night, were crawling in and out of the doors or screaming from inside.
Okay, I might be getting Oliver Twist mixed in with my story. Maybe a bit too much Charles Dickens right here? Well, you can let me know in the comment box below this video. Actually, I ended up liking boarding school. Loving it, really. For me, it was more like letting a curious bird out of its tiny cage. I needed to fly around and experience much more than what was in front of me. And the school I went to was perfect. I remember that first day. I opened the door to my assigned room. Oh, good Lord. 3 stacked beds on each side of this very large room. 5 girls were already there, my roommates. They were yakking and carrying on while unpacking their suitcases. It was a sight of faces like I've never seen before. Not in one room at the same time, anyway. The residents came from places like Puerto Rico and Cuba, Honduras and Venezuela, from Canada and the States. It was a circus of Americas, and a flavorful collection, I might add, of accents and dialects, and perspectives as well. And I was like a sponge. It was a wonderful place for traveling explorers. We were black and white, blue and pink. It was as if our colorful differences were part of the school's curriculum. We were void of pep rallies and football, sleepovers and dances, but we also had no bullies or queens. We were bound together by a code of our similarities, in addition to the fact that we were all dumped in that same school's lobby, waving goodbye to our parents. Outsiders referred to us as the boarders. I loved it. I told my mom the residents were only allowed to go back home during major holidays. She never really questioned me. But my mother was no bird. She loved her cage just the way it was. And all I know for sure is, whoever was my mother on that particular day, when she finds out what I did, that woman's gonna kill me. I left that room where all the transfer decisions were made with remorse and guilt about everything I have ever done wrong in my entire life. It was over. The exit walk towards the elevators was weighted by my traitorous deed. I couldn't swallow. My jaws clamped down tight. Tears lost their way and filled my mouth. I pushed the elevator button that arrowed down. When the doors opened, a man inside, carrying a little girl in his arms, moved slightly to the side. The little girl was tightly bundled in a pink padded jacket that went past her neck and hooded her head. A zipper and drawstring kept her stiff and fixed in place. The little girl stared at me, as did her smiley-faced balloon that she was carrying by a string wrapped around her tight fist. They both stared at me for the longest time. Then, with no provocation on my part, she squished her lips together and pushed out her smart-ass tongue as far as it could go. I never had children myself, but I wanted to slap her silly. What gave her the right to judge me without all the facts? And then, for her to tongue-lash me for crimes that she was far too young to understand? I was in no mood to be provoked. The elevator hit the main floor with a jerk before it settled its landing. Then the doors opened. I followed the sassy sack and her father out of the building. I vaguely remembered and at the same time hardly recognized where I was. It must have snowed all day. The parking lot was all white with scattered rectangle patches of blue-black where cars left to go home. Only a few mounds of white snow popped up from the flat landscape. One mound was in the shape of my car. I mean my mother's car. I walked slowly to the covered sedan, brushed aside the snow parts, and slid into the driver's side. I started the reluctant engine and sat there waiting for the motor to clear its throat and blow in some warm air. The heater's control dial was on maximum heat, as my breath vaporized in the air and steamed the windows. I bounced inside my skin and slapped my limbs together for friction warmth. Thoughts of the day fell apart like 1,000 snow crystals that went flying into the glass faces of the street lamps. The wipers helped. They moved the snow away, slowly at first, and then frantically rushed its sweep. I made them stop. Their nervousness irritated me. I wanted to cry, cried hard, but it was just too damn cold, and I was just too damn scared. What was going to happen to me? I felt shut off and squeezed out of myself and closed from inside. Of course I felt bad for my mother, but I felt worse for myself. I know that sounds bad, but I couldn't stop thinking that there's a damn good possibility I'm not going to come out of this alive. And my friends back home, what's going to happen to Picasso, Giacometti, Gully Jimson, and de Kooning? We are all very close. They've been my ghostly mentors for years. What's to become of them? I know that may sound crazy, but for me, they are more than just the characters on thin paper passages bound in books. Those books that are stacked on my bed 2,000 miles away. I've been sleeping with them for years. The books, I mean. My skin shivered. My heart beat like a toy that was wound too tight. I wanted to run away. Shivering, I closed my eyes and used all my brains to go someplace other than where I was. Artists can do that. I needed to leave this cold, leave Chicago. I needed to leave all the talk about my mother and the dementia and run inside myself back home, back to my studio, back to where I belong. I must add a footnote here. The rehab center, which I might have referred to as a dingy, decaying nursing home, well, it really was just fine. But my guilt? Now that was supreme. It's a self-inflicted condition that took years of training and has lasted because of my gifted imagination. My name is Suska. Thank you for listening to the Dementialand podcast.